What does it take for God to get people's attention? In the days of Isaiah, God was trying to get the attention of the people of Judah, and he used Isaiah as a sign to point the people to him and to the truth. In Isaiah chapter 20, it says, "At the same time spake the Lord by Isaiah the son of Amos, saying, Go and loose the sackcloth from off thy loins." Isaiah had already been walking around the land wearing sackcloth as a sign of mourning, trying to get the people to look at him and say, "Why are you wearing sackcloth?" Well, let me tell you why. Because we're sinning against God. We're going away from God. We need to go toward God. But God says, "It's time to change gears, Isaiah. I want you to take the sackcloth off. Put off thy shoe from thy foot." And he did so, walking naked and barefoot. And the Lord said, "Like as my servant Isaiah hath walked naked and barefoot 3 years for a sign and wonder upon Egypt and upon Ethiopia, so shall the king of Assyria lead away the Egyptian prisoners and the Ethiopians captives, young and old, naked and barefoot, even with their buttocks uncovered, to the shame of Egypt. And they shall be afraid and ashamed of Ethiopia, their expectation, and of Egypt, their glory." The people of Judah knew that God was ultimately going to bless Egypt because he had promised that he would. And so they said, "We need some help against this Assyrian army that's coming. Let's ally ourselves with Egypt and Ethiopia." And God said, no, that won't do you any good, because they're going to be defeated by the Assyrians. They're going to be taken captive. And when they do, they're going to be led away naked and barefoot. And so as Isaiah walks around naked and barefoot, wearing just his loincloth, he was a sign and a wonder, the Bible says, to the people. They looked at him and they said, "Isaiah, what are you doing?" I'm sure he felt very foolish doing this. But what it did was it caused people to look at him and to say, "What are you doing?" So that he could tell them, "Don't trust in Egypt. Don't trust in Ethiopia. We must trust in the Lord." You know, as we come to the New Testament in 1 Corinthians, it tells us in chapter 1, verse 21, it says, "For after that in the wisdom of God, the world by wisdom knew not God. It pleased God by the foolishness of preaching to save them that believe." In our day, the world looks at preaching, looks at what I'm doing right now and says, "What a foolish thing to do. What a waste of time." Kind of like the world looked at Isaiah in his day saying, "Isaiah, you're wasting your time and you're making a fool out of yourself." He goes on and says, "For the Jews require a sign, and the Greeks seek after wisdom." Well, here's a spectacle, something to look at for you. Watch this. "But we preach Christ crucified, unto the Jews a stumbling block." Now, how can a crucified Messiah be someone to put your faith in? That's what the Jews think. "And unto the Greeks, foolishness." I don't know how many times I've heard people say, you Christians, you are such fools because you believe in a dead God. And so when we preach that, the world says, well, that's just foolishness. 1 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 9, Paul says, "For I think that God hath set forth us the apostles last, as it were appointed to death. For we are made a spectacle unto the world, and to angels, and to men. For we are fools for Christ's sake." You see, to a lost world, the message of the cross is foolishness. It doesn't make any sense to the lost world at all. But to us, once we understand, once we embrace the message of the cross, we say, "Oh my goodness, this is the genius of God. It is the incredible blessing of his love to give his son." And so, much like in Isaiah's day, when you share the message of the gospel, a lot of people look at that and say, "You're being a fool to believe something like that." And in Isaiah's day, I'm sure he felt like a fool walking around in nothing but his underwear. But God used it for a sign to say, hey, don't trust in these world powers, trust in me. And especially now as we look to the spectacle of the cross and we say, we preach Christ crucified. The world sees it as foolishness, but to us it's the power of God. It is the love of God. I hope that you know Jesus. I hope that you have embraced the message of the cross and that you have a relationship with him. God bless you. Hope you have a great day.